At first glance, they are merely massive stone structures rising above the desert. But if you listen closely, through the ages they whisper of the fear of death, the belief in eternity, the longing for immortality. The pyramids of Egypt are not just tombs. They are frozen manifestos of a civilization that sought to conquer both nature and death itself. How did the idea arise? To bury their rulers beneath mountains of stone reaching toward the sky? It all began long before Khufu and Giza. Many believe that Egypt began building pyramids right from the start. But in truth, it all started much more modestly, with mastabas. These rectangular structures with sloping sides were the first burial places of the nobility. No grandeur, no hidden passages, just one goal: to preserve the body and the name. Why was this so important? In ancient Egyptian belief, a person consisted of several entities: Ka, Ba, Ach. For the soul to continue its existence, the body had to remain intact. Destroy the body, and the individual ceases to exist. That's why the entire society was obsessed with preserving the deceased. At the turn of the 27th century BCE, a figure emerged whom contemporaries regarded as almost a demigod: Imhotep. He was not a pharaoh. He was an architect, priest, physician, and sage at the court of King Djoser. It was Imhotep who conceived a revolutionary idea: to stack several mastabas one atop another, creating steps toward the sky. Thus, the step pyramid at Saqqara was born, the first in history. This was more than architecture. It was a breakthrough in thought. For the first time, a human constructed something so massive for an idea, so that the deceased could ascend to the sky, to the stars, to the gods. Every stone in a pyramid is not just a building block, but a cornerstone of a worldview where the afterlife is a continuation of earthly life, only eternal. The ancient Egyptians believed that the West was the land of the dead. That's why nearly all pyramids were built on the western bank of the Nile. The sun sets in the west, and just as Ra disappears beyond the horizon, the pharaoh's soul journeys into the other world. The shape of the pyramid is a ray of sunlight frozen in stone. It symbolized the soul's ascent to the heavens. Architecture served religion, and religion served power. For if the pharaoh was the son of a god, then his tomb had to be not of this world, but divine. Around 4,700 years ago, during the time of the Third Dynasty, Egypt stood on the threshold of a new era. The unified kingdom was gaining strength, and for the first time in history, the power of the pharaoh began to be felt as something absolute. It was then that Djoser ascended the throne, a man whose image was framed not only by royal regalia, but also by an aura of mysticism. His reign was marked not by wars, but by profound reforms. He not only fortified the borders, but also set a new direction in thought. The cult of the pharaoh's personality was no longer earthly. He was now a divine being, a living avatar of celestial power. That is why Djoser's tomb could not be ordinary. It had to reflect his new, nearly divine status. In the shadow of the pharaoh stands a figure who continues to captivate the imagination to this day: Imhotep, a name that would later be revered as that of a demigod, the patron of medicine, architecture, and knowledge. But in his own time, he was merely a vizier, a priest, and an advisor. Imhotep was not just a builder, he was a visionary. He understood that form could embody an idea of greatness, of ascension, of life after death. Before him, royal tombs were horizontal structures. Imhotep was the first to propose lifting the tomb skyward, creating a step pyramid in which each level represented a stage of the pharaoh's journey to the stars. Construction began in Saqqara, a desert region where, above the eternal silence, a masterpiece of architecture soon rose, formed from 6 ascending mastabas stacked one upon another. Djoser's pyramid was not merely a tomb. It was an entire architectural complex, surrounded by a high wall adorned with reliefs that imitated the royal palace. Within its enclosure were temples, ritual courtyards, storerooms for offerings, and even symbolic buildings that recreated scenes of royal ceremonies. These were not just decorations. They were the stage set of eternity. The Egyptians believed that the deceased pharaoh continued to rule in the afterlife, and everything that had surrounded him in life had to be recreated after death. Thousands of laborers, craftsmen, and engineers worked on this project. Stone by stone, layer by layer, they created something that had never been done before. And remarkably, the entire structure was built from limestone, not from mud brick and reed as was common before. It was the first stone mega project in history. They were not building just for the dead. They were building a manifesto of civilization. After the completion of Djoser's pyramid, it became clear. The world had changed. To die no longer meant to disappear, but to enter history. And from that moment on, every subsequent ruler sought to outdo his predecessor. The race for eternity had begun. Saqqara became the model, the prototype of what would later be realized in Giza. It was here that the style was born, here that the philosophy took shape. Imhotep may not have known that his project would mark the beginning of the grandest architectural tradition in human history. The desert west of the Nile. A scorching wind sweeps through the centuries. Against the blazing sun, silhouettes rise, shapes that seem to have always been there. The pyramids of Giza are not merely wonders of the world. They are a defiance of time, space, and death itself. Less than 100 years had passed since the time of Djoser, but the ambitions of the new pharaohs had grown beyond the sacred. They now sought not only eternity, but absolute power. Their tombs were no longer to be just temples. They had to become embodiments of might. It was then that a name emerged, one that still echoes in history books: Khufu, known in Greek as Cheops. Pharaoh Khufu ruled Egypt around the middle of the 26th century BCE. Historical sources about him have nearly vanished, but one structure speaks for him louder than any chronicle: the Great Pyramid. Its original height was nearly 147 meters, the tallest monument created by human hands until the Middle Ages. It contains about 2.5 million blocks, each weighing between 1 and 15 tons. All of these blocks were laid with a precision that still amazes engineers today. How was this built? The answer lies in organization. Egypt, at that time, had a powerful administrative system. Tens of thousands of workers, craftsmen, and architects worked seasonally while the Nile flooded and the fields required no maintenance. These were not slaves, as commonly believed, but skilled laborers who worked in exchange for food, shelter, and respect. The Pyramid of Khufu is not just a pile of stone. It is a geometric manifestation of precision. Each side of its base is aligned with the cardinal directions with an error of less than 0.1 degrees. The internal corridors, chambers, and ventilation shafts are all designed with engineering meticulousness. Inside lies the grand gallery, leading to the burial chamber, where once, perhaps, the pharaoh's sarcophagus stood. Yet no mummies or treasures have been found within the pyramid. It may have been looted in ancient times, or perhaps we still haven't uncovered everything hidden inside. Over the centuries, the pyramid has spawned legends and hypotheses. Some believed it held the secret knowledge of the Atlanteans. Others thought it was a message from extraterrestrials. But the truth is likely far more mundane. It was a marvel of human labor, faith, and technical thought brought to its ultimate limit. The Great Pyramid did not stand alone. It was flanked by two more: the Pyramid of Khafra, the son of Khufu, and the Pyramid of Menkaure, his grandson. The Pyramid of Khafra is almost the same height as the Great Pyramid, but it was built slightly higher above the ground, creating the illusion of being equal to Khufu's. At the foot of this pyramid stands one of the most enigmatic symbols of antiquity, the Great Sphinx. It seems to guard the pharaoh's rest, gazing through the desert into eternity. Who built it remains unclear. Some scholars believe it was Khafra himself, while others suggest the Sphinx predates all the pyramids. The Pyramid of Menkaure is the smallest, yet the most elegant. It is clad in expensive granite brought from Aswan. This was a gesture of wealth and refinement. He could have built a larger pyramid, but he chose quality over size. The grandeur of the pyramids has long amazed humanity, but even more so is the very possibility of their creation in that era. How could people, who lacked the wheel for transport, build structures weighing millions of tons with such precision, as if they were following blueprints from the future? This question has sparked numerous hypotheses, ranging from secret knowledge of priests to ancient civilization machines. But today, science seeks to answer without speculation. Through archaeology, engineering, and logic, the pyramids were built from limestone, granite, and basalt. The primary material was local white limestone, quarried near the plateau. The granite used for the internal chambers was transported from Aswan, more than 800 kilometers away. The tools were simple: copper chisels, hammers, stone mallets, and wooden levers. To us, they seem primitive. To them, it was an art. Stone workers worked in teams, knowing exactly where and how to split a block so that it broke along a specific line. Transporting the blocks was a feat in itself. Until recently, it was believed that the blocks were dragged across the sand on sleds. However, studies have shown that the Egyptians watered the sand, creating a slippery surface. This significantly reduced friction. And this is not just a theory, but an engineering discovery confirmed by experiments. But the most crucial question remains: how did they lift such heavy blocks higher and higher? Several theories exist. Straight ramp, a massive inclined platform along which the stones were hauled. The downside: it would have required more stone than the pyramid itself and would have had to be dismantled after completion. Spiral ramps around the pyramid, their remains could have been destroyed by the outer casing. This theory explains the gradual construction with simultaneous work on different levels. Internal ramp, proposed by French architect Jean-Pierre Houdin. He suggested that beneath the casing, a corridor existed through which blocks were raised in a zigzag manner inside the structure itself. X-rays of the pyramid show anomalies that correspond to this hypothesis. Which method was used remains a subject of debate. However, one thing is clear: the ancient Egyptians were not fantasists. They were engineers. The success of the construction was not only due to technology, but also organization. The pyramids were not built by slaves, as was long believed. Archaeological findings confirm that workers were settled in special villages near the construction sites. These villages had bakeries, meat warehouses, workshops, and even medical stations. The workers were divided into brigades of 20 or 30 people, which were called groups, and had names like the Drunkards of Khufu or the Friends of Khafra. These names were carved on the blocks, a sort of autograph of the ancient construction battalions. Their work was seasonal, during the flooding of the Nile, when fields were submerged and farmers became builders. This was a national-scale social project that united the kingdom. For the ancient Egyptian, the pyramid was not just a tomb. It was a model of the universe, created according to strict religious, mathematical, and cosmological principles. Its shape, location, and proportions carried deep symbolic meaning, understood only in the context of Egyptian belief. The word pyramid is Greek. The Egyptians called it Mer, which can be translated as place of ascent. This was not a metaphor. The pyramid symbolized the pharaoh's path to the sky, to the gods, to eternity. The shape of the pyramid is not a coincidence. It is a sunbeam, frozen in stone. According to mythology, the world emerged from the primordial mound, Benben, where the Bennu bird, a symbol of rebirth, first landed. Each pyramid is an embodiment of this mound. The apex of the pyramid pointed to the sky, towards the stars. Specifically, to the stars, because in Egyptian religion, the constellation of Orion was associated with Osiris, the god of the afterlife, and Sirius, with the star of Isis. This was the destination the pharaoh's soul sought. It is no coincidence that many shafts inside the pyramids are aligned with these celestial bodies. They were not ventilation shafts, but rather conduits for the Ka, soul, allowing it to leave the tomb and merge with the gods. The pyramids were not built by guesswork. Behind their proportions lies precise calculation. If you calculate the ratio of the perimeter of the base to the height of the Great Pyramid of Khufu, you will get a number close to 2. It's as if the pyramid contains a circle inscribed within a square. Some researchers believe that the ancient Egyptians understood this relationship intuitively through geometry related to circles and squares. The angle of inclination, about 51 degrees and 50 minutes, is repeated in several pyramids. It is believed that this angle provided the optimal balance between height and stability, but it's possible that there was also a sacred meaning behind it, connected to numbers and the sky. The pyramids of Giza are not placed randomly. The three main pyramids, those of Khufu, Khafra, and Menkaure, are positioned in such a way that they resemble the three stars of Orion's belt. This is not a mere coincidence. Archaeoastronomers suggest that the architects may have oriented the pyramids according to the night sky, in order to reflect the order of the cosmos on Earth. Additionally, the pyramids are located on the western bank of the Nile, the direction where the sun sets, symbolizing the realm of the dead. The living resided on the east, where the sun rises, while the dead were associated with the west. Even the boats that carried the pharaoh's body followed this solar trajectory. The entire internal structure of the pyramids is a guide for the soul. From the entrance corridor, descending into the underworld, to the ascending galleries, everything is designed so that the pharaoh's spirit can make its journey from the earth to the stars, from the physical to the divine. Each chamber held significance. The lower one could symbolize Duat, the underworld. The upper one was a place for union with the gods. The queen's chamber was not for the pharaoh's wife, but for his Ba, the spiritual essence that was meant to merge with the Ka and become an Akh, an enlightened spirit. In this sense, the pyramid is not a tomb, but a transmuter, a device in which death is not the end, but the beginning of a new form of existence. The construction of monumental pyramids reached its peak during the Old Kingdom, particularly in the reign of the Fourth Dynasty. The Pyramid of Khufu is the greatest stone structure ever created. However, by the 5th and 6th dynasties, the pyramids became smaller, simpler, and less durable. For example, the Pyramid of Unas, the last pharaoh of the 5th dynasty, was much shorter and constructed from less durable materials. Stone blocks were replaced by mud bricks, and the external cladding disappeared more quickly, leaving only the crumbling core. Why? The answer lies not in mysticism, but in politics, economics, and religion. The pyramids of Egypt are not merely architectural monuments. They are expressions of the grandeur and ambitions of the pharaohs, reflections of their views on the world and the afterlife. Behind these monumental structures lies a profound meaning that we can only partially understand across the millennia. A pyramid is not just a burial place. It is a mechanism aimed at achieving immortality and connection with the divine. And although the era of the pyramids has ended, their influence on culture, science, and worldview remains immeasurable. We are still trying to unravel the mysteries they left behind, for the pyramids are not just stones. They are eternal messengers of ancient Egypt, speaking to us through the centuries.